I am so excited to have Meta Nelson, the founder of Meta Speakers. Meta is a fierce Texan and the visionary founder of Meta Speakers, established in 2021. She has a proven track record in building and supporting small businesses and brings entrepreneurial experience and passion to every endeavor. Beyond her professional life, Meta is deeply committed to personal growth and balance. She's an avid reader, a dedicated fitness enthusiast, and a globetrotter who enjoys traveling alongside her husband to help him create music. Meta's driving mission is to help others succeed, and she channels this passion into empowering the speakers she represents to share their stories and change lives. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Counter Life podcast. I know we come from a crazy industry and background. Not all of the people that I have the opportunity to interview do we have this connection, so it's kind of fun. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored when you asked me to be on the podcast. I was like, oh, absolutely. I would love to. So I love what you guys are doing. And, I think we have so much in common. So it's so much fun to have, a network that we can kind of dig into, and just, it's a small world.
It really is. One of the things that I really am I admire so much about you is you are so young. You are so young to be a business owner, entrepreneur, and have touched so many small businesses and really helped to bring them to life.
Oh,
What was your defining moment that sparked your journey into entrepreneurship or starting Meta Speakers?
Oh man, that's funny. That's really funny. And I mean, if you know me, if you're close to me, hopefully if you're ancillary, if you're just kind of in the peanut gallery, I'm really big into my faith. And so I think honestly, there's a lot of things that God does for me and not to me. And so that's where I preface this story. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur. He was a landscaper, and I grew up in Dallas, Texas. And I just watched how hard it was. And he had so many different struggles and just all the things that you have to kind of juggle. And so I grew up saying, you know what, I am not going to do this. I'm going to go work for a big company and have benefits and all the things, and I'm never going to worry about things. And here we are, fast forward just a few years later, and I'm starting my 5th year at Meta Speakers. And it was honestly, January of 2021, I got on my first work call. I was working for a marketing events company. I got on my first call of the year, and I just had a feeling. I get on this call, and my COO says, so we've decided to lay you off. We'll pick your role back up in March or April, but sorry, we just have to, we were still in the thick of COVID, right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
dealing with all of that. And so I've just kind of been like this was another small business that I was working for. And we had been producing virtual events through 2020. And so I was like gung ho. Again, I just love to support people. I just want to help people be successful. So that's what I was all in to do. And he laid me off, and I was like, oh no. And I had come from another management company. So I had always kind of worked in the event space. And I had been, previous to that company, I was 7 years with this other management company. And so after a bottle of wine that night, I'm not going to lie, after a bottle of wine that night, I sat down with Instagram, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to see. This is not something I had dreamed of. This happened this day that I was laid off. I'm going to see if the handle Meta Speakers is available. And if this handle is available on Instagram, then I guess we'll just see what happens. And so I remember it vividly. I was sitting on my patio outside. It was like 9 p.m. and like Meta Speakers, and it was available. And like, what more millennial thing to kind of discover your company name? But I was like, okay, cool. Well, let's do it. And so I called up my first speaker, Darren Woodson. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champ. He's 5-time Pro Bowler. He is a very, very influential human being, and he's just always kind of believed in me. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And so we did it. And here we are. Fast forward, gosh, 4 years later, we're kicking off year 5.
That's crazy. So how many speakers do you have that you represent or manage?
Boy, let's see. I have 7 on my official roster, and then I have a few that I've been working with just to kind of coach or build up that I really believe in, because I never, it's the hardest thing as a manager, at least for me, is I just want to help everybody and I can't help everybody. And so I'm trying to, as small business owners, we have to learn how do we scale? How are we going to build this in the future? And so I have a few people that I kind of work with in the shadows, and we're hoping to get them up to a point where we can launch them out to the roster. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Seven is a lot. People
Is.
don't realize, people do not have, if they're not in the industry, it's really hard to understand all of the behind the scenes work that really goes into managing speakers.
Totally. Because it's more than just bookings. For me, I like to take a holistic approach of, okay, what are we going to do? What are we always doing to level up? And how can we make your business the best that it can be? And we're playing the long game, right? We're not going to just, the days of transactions are over. And so how can we build relationships? How can we build your brand as a whole? And it's a lot, and it's fun. It's kind of a fire hose at times. And then other times you're kind of sitting there like, okay, it's just me and the crickets. What's going on? So it's always kind of shifting. And how do we deal with that quiet time? And how do we deal with the busy time? And it's never a dull moment.
I also think that because of the nature of the industry, reputation is everything.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's very small and everybody knows everybody, and reputation really plays a huge, huge role.
Totally.
Sorry, there goes my dogs.
I will probably hear. They'll join in, so we'll have a symphony. No, but
sorry, listeners. We have dogs. It just happens. We can't help it.
That's a sign of good people. You're listening to a good podcast if you hear dogs in the background. That's just my personal opinion.
Mine too.
It's so funny that you bring up reputation, though, because I mean, just obviously us personally in the industry, but then also I kind of, whenever I'm talking to speakers, sometimes I tell them, look, part of my job is to be a reputation manager. And I want to make you look like the easiest speaker to work with, and like you're fun to work with, and you're just excited to be there. And so it's just interesting that you bring that up, because that's kind of the theme of this year.
I love the reputation manager title. That's so good.
Right? It's like there's so many different pieces that we manage, and so it surpasses just bookings. It goes so much farther than that. So
yeah, for sure. Well, you've played vital roles in building other small businesses. What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way that has shaped how you approach challenges today?
Oh, wow. That's really good. Well, that's kind of a loaded question, because I've been very fortunate. So the first event I ever went to, I was so young I couldn't even drink. I was 22 at that event, because we were in Vegas and all the things. But anyways, I was actually 19. And so from 19 years old, I learned from some of the best speakers that are still out there, that are still speaking in the circuit. And so I was able to pick up not only what I learned from my former bosses, which were so much fun. I had so much fun at all my former roles. And that's I've been very fortunate for that to be kind of a theme running throughout my history. But I've learned so much just from speakers that I've worked with, and so many tidbits that, like, I hear Christine Cashin in my head telling me, she taught me how to network at events and how to talk to people. Because I came from I might be from Dallas, Texas, which is a big city, But I came from a tiny, tiny little school and we didn't really talk to people. And so we didn't learn social things. So with her, she taught me how to talk to people. And then
Mhm.
like people like Mike Staber, he was one of the first people I called up when I started my business. And I was like, am I crazy? What do I need to know? And he said, sit down, get a piece of paper and a pen and write down everything I'm about to tell you. And I did. And so through that, I've just been, again, that's why I say it's kind of a loaded question, because I've learned, I think one of the biggest lessons is just not to stop learning. And, and that's been, I think, because I think people, whenever they think they know everything, that's where, pride cometh before the fall. And
Yeah.
I've
Yep.
learned not to get too proud. So and I'm also really good at learning how not to do things and then how to do things opposite of that. So I've also been fortunate to have some of those pieces in my history as well, of like, okay, maybe this didn't work out. Let's try this approach. So I think it's just always be learning, always be sucking in that information. So yeah.
That's so good. I see this meme from time to time floating around on Instagram, and it says something kind of similar to that, like, um, don't stop learning. You don't know everything.
Yes, exactly.
You do
Honestly,
not know everything.
exactly. And I don't want to know everything also. Ignorance really is bliss in some
It's
situations.
so true. So
It
true.
really is.
Well, as a fierce Texan, and I love that.
I love
Um,
that too.
well, it's so true. Texas is like a go big or go home. What unique traits or values from your background have influenced your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh man. Okay. This is my peepaw taught me this. Always do what you say you're going to do. And I would say that's one of
Ooh.
the lessons that I've learned, and work really hard. It's that grit. Like there's just, and
Mhm.
I'm married a man who's even more Texan than I am. And that grit that they have is just incredible. The way that they work on the farm, they build in the fences, like herding the cattle, all that stuff. They actually do that. And it's incredible to watch the sheer grit, but then also that piece of, and I've worked with people who didn't do what they said they were going to do, and again, it kind of goes back to that thread of the reputation. It's a
Yes.
small world, it's a smaller industry, and so just do what you say you're going to do, and don't work really hard. That's the work ethic is definitely kind of one of my biggest driving forces. I've just learned, and my father was also, he he was one of those people who really took the Boy Scouts seriously, if that makes sense. I grew up camping, and he would always say, leave a place better than you found it. So my job at the campsites when we were leaving and packing up was pick up all the trash and leave a place better than you found it. And so that mentality has really helped me. That's honestly one of my biggest goals, overarching goals. I want to leave this world better than I found it, but I also want to leave my speakers' businesses better than I found it. And if I don't feel like I'm doing that, then maybe this isn't a good fit. And
Mhm.
so yeah, there's a lot of Texas in what we do,
I
and
love that.
bless my speakers' hearts.
Now, are all the speakers, they're all over the country, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Primarily West Coast, which is kind of funny. I have one in Switzerland.
Oh,
I have
wow. Okay.
one in Dallas, and then I have a bunch on the West Coast. And so they're kind of all just all over the place. It's
Do
fun.
you get to go to Switzerland?
Honestly, I have an open invitation and I need to take it, because we
Yes.
sometimes with our clients, and this, like we'll send little like intro videos of, hey, get to meet Doug. And he always, I think it's a flex, honestly. He always records intro videos for his clients, his prospects, bureau agents. He always does it with an incredible view of the mountains behind it. And so I'm
I'm
just sitting
sure.
in a little Texas town, like uploading these videos and sending in like, oh, what is the view today? And it's like the sun is just descending on the mountaintop. So yes, all that to say I need to go to Switzerland. You can come with me. We'll
I
just
was going to say, I think that, you might need like a video person or a podcaster.
oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Okay, this is just getting better. This is so good. This is so good. So much
I love this. Collaboration at its finest.
eggs.
You're watching, you're listening to it happen in real time, people.
Yep, yep. And now we have actual it's on the record at this point.
Yes.
We have to do it. I love it.
Well, so when you're looking at like growth and growing your business, which I know it has over the last several years, intuition plays a big part in like who you bring on,
Mhm.
who you mentor, who you're going to allow to kind of partner with your speakers.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, because that comes from a big, you got to have trust. You got to like really trust your
Yeah.
gut.
Yeah. Man, that's a really good question, and it's a good observation because I think there's so much honestly, it's this, and I've noticed this recently when I feel like we're trying to force something, when I feel like something is just, it's a lot of, and again, this work ethic, like I'm all in, like let's work, let's work hard. I'm all about that. Let's do it. But then there's when it takes, sometimes it takes a shift where it's like, okay, things are the gears are grinding, something is not fitting here, and I've really started listening to that feeling more and more of, hey, we've been trying out this program and it's just not working, and I think there's a reason it's not working, so let's table this. And some things I'm hesitant to get into, and then I signs just start popping up of, okay, this is just, it's just coming together when thing, and that's kind of the beauty. And again, with meta speakers just in general, it just kind of came together and it just formed. And I was going to give it 2 years, and then I was going to go to underwater basket weaving or something. I was going to take a big left turn, but here we are in our 5th year, and
Incredible.
it really is incredible. I'm like, oh, okay. And so you say growth, and I'm like, okay, I actually have to like learn business things now. Okay, how do we scale this? How do we build this? How can we be here forever? Because I want to be that old crusty lady in the back of IASB where they're like, oh, she's been here since the beginning of time. Like that's what I want to be in the future for IASB and for the speaking industry. So that's yeah.
It's yeah, it's some of the growth too. Some of it's not fun. Some
No.
of it is not fun. Like you have to do hard things. You
Yeah.
have to have hard conversations sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun. I've learned to just kind of lean into it because I am a very non-confrontational person.
Mhm.
And my husband is kind of the opposite. Like he kind of thrives on confrontation. Like he enjoys it. He's one of those like he'll just get into Facebook wars just because he's bored and wants to talk to people. And I'm like, why? I don't understand. But I've started to lean into some of those, and it's all about and that's where I'm uncomfortable. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the sign, of okay, this is something that I need to work on, that we need to be doing, because if we're too comfortable, that's not good. So
Do you find that sometimes we talk about this a lot.
yeah.
Do you find sometimes that it is still challenging as a woman? We still deal with like some of those same issues that we heard our mothers and grandmothers talking about, but
Yeah.
it's still tough. It's still tough.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I love that you bring this up because honestly, I think my age is more of a barrier than my womanness, if that
Okay.
makes sense. Because I think, and that's maybe that's not true. Maybe it is that I'm a woman, but I'll get on some calls with, it'll be a whole team of male decision makers. And so I have to sit there and think, okay, what is the perception of them talking to me? And I kind of hold the keys to some very important people that they want to come to their event. And so
Mhm.
it's a very interesting And again, you asked the Texas things, how do the Texas aspects come into business? It's I grew up, you respect your elders and you respect those above you. You respect people just in general. And so I kind of have to lead with that of, okay, you all could be my father or my grandfather, and I'm telling you how it is. So I kind of lean into my womanhood, if that makes sense. Of
It absolutely does. Yeah.
like I kind of leverage it, like why not? It's kind of our superpower. So
Mhm.
let's see how we can pull the strings as women. But I don't know. I don't know if there's any specific times that's kind of held me back, because in my head I'm always like, oh, it's because they think I'm 12. So which is understandable. I'm working on the wrinkles. I'm working on it. They're coming in.
Don't wish them too quickly. Trust me. I know that like when we are having like when we're like working on proposals or things like that, we will really like we have to step back sometimes and we'll say to each other like, I wonder if men have these same conversations because we're like, is our pricing structure good? Is it,
Oh,
I mean, it's just all of the things. And I think that, and I am envious of men in a lot of ways where they're just so confident.
yes.
Um, they don't even second guess what their pricing structure is. And here we are, we're like, oh my, are we charging too much? And, it's just crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, no, and it is, I definitely, when you put it that way, I definitely write emails differently to men than I do to women, and different things like that. And then I'm always like, okay, well, what do they want to hear? So I'll just be direct with them. And it's kind of refreshing, but it honestly, and again, just my husband's also an entrepreneur. So watching him, the way that he's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do it. And he just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, what? You just did that, and that kind of worked. What? So it's hard for us. It's hard because we think about everything. We don't just think linearly. We don't
Yeah.
have waffle brains. We're spaghetti. So
Yes.
yeah.
A big heaping plate of spaghetti.
Yes. With the sauce, with the cheese, with everything.
Yeah.
Like it's all in there, and we're all thinking about it at the same time, which I guess makes you good at your job and it makes me good at my job. So hey.
Well, I love it because, and you might have this too, but I have some men who are mentors to me because, I can remember when I started in my corporate career,
Mhm.
an older man kind of took me under his wing. And that was, I want to say 25, 26 years ago. And we are still such good friends. I still will lean on him. He's so good at like giving me kind of the male version, like you're thinking too emotional. You need
Mhm.
to, pivot and think about it this way or that way. And I'm so grateful for that.
Mm,
Because I do think that men and women we need each other to bounce ideas off of and just
absolutely.
to work well and be successful. It's
Absolutely.
really important. I think it's really cool that your husband's an entrepreneur too and a musician. Come
Yeah.
on.
Thank you. Thank you. It makes buying a house very difficult because they're like, oh, okay, well, you write off everything. And yeah, well, that's where he's a veteran and he's an entrepreneur. So it's like, oh, we have benefits over here, but then we also don't, because nobody cares about entrepreneurs. But we're working on that. I feel like the world's getting better. We're
Oh, well, thank him for his service.
Oh, I will. I will. Absolutely.
I love our veterans. So,
Oh, I love that.
um, it sounds like you have found ways to balance a successful business and traveling with your husband and working out, and you're constantly learning. But how do you manage it all? And what advice do you have for entrepreneurs trying to maintain or find balance?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. Honestly, I don't know.
It just kind of happens.
Well, and again, I don't know if it kind of goes back to I've just been inundated for honestly, this industry is all I've known. This is the end or I guess this is the beginning of my 12th year in the speaking and events industry. And so I've just been inundated with speaker content, and I've just learned from, again, I've learned from some of the best. And so I sometimes I don't, honestly. Sometimes I don't, and I fall short very, very often. But I think it's just all about consistency and finding out what you can do consistently and what that looks like for you. And sometimes for some people, that's going to the gym once a week. I try to go every day, and then I fall short of that, and I'm like, cool, I only went 4 or 5 days this week. Awesome, like that's a win. And so I don't know. I think it's just all of the speakerisms that I've taken in, that just it keeps me going. And honestly, I think I really don't think I could do this without the Holy Spirit inside of me. Like, okay, let's speak the truth in love. Let's, rest when we need to rest. Let's do.
Mm-hmm.
I have like, let's not worry about tomorrow. Today has enough trouble of its own. Let's think about today, and tomorrow will come. But we have everything we need, and tomorrow will handle itself. Let's just figure out, because you can't add days to your life worrying. And yeah.
I think that's a great philosophy. And I also like that you kind of set the bar super high in terms of like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week. And then if I get 4 in, I mean, 4 is amazing. But I just, it's so important. I think we have to carve out that time. One
Yes.
of the things that I used to be so guilty of this, I felt like if I can't do something, if I can't go to the gym for an hour and a half, then it's not worth going. And a friend of mine was like, why do you think that? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I think that. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, I'm okay. If I can just go for 45 minutes, then I go in with a mission and, grind it out for 45 minutes. And I had to let go of that whole, if I can't get an hour and a half in, it's not worth it, because
Oh,
that's not true.
totally. Isn't it funny, the rules that we put in
Yeah.
our head that we live by, and we're like, who told me that this is the way that it should be, and that I have to live my life this way? And once you break through those, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
I think also I surround myself with people, again, just working with some very high level speakers, and Darren especially. He's, you don't win 3 Super Bowls by half-assing it at practice.
Yes. Yeah.
French, but so I've learned from him of how to be a compelled leader, how to show up early when nobody else is, and how to be that person who's doing more, even if everybody else isn't. And so how can I kind of hold myself, like you said, how can I raise the bar for myself and keep that high? And then I think my biggest problem is giving myself grace for whenever I fall short.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
As I'm listening to you, I hope so. You are a different kind of storyteller than your speakers are. And I bet you haven't even thought about that.
No, tell me more.
Well, so because you have your story, and storytelling is all around your journey of entrepreneurship, and I just think it's really fascinating. It just hit me. I'm like, she is a totally different kind of storyteller than her speakers.
That is so interesting. I'm going to think about that. That's really, I like that.
You help so many people, and you're the back end of this machine that just basically helps storytellers, and
Mhm.
change makers like hit the stage. But here you are quietly behind the scenes
Yep.
doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It's like I really love being behind the scenes. I really, really do. But you bring up storytelling because I think in my head, I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way. I'm always thinking there's got to be a better way. What's the better way? How can we improve whatever we're doing? And so that's actually been something that I've been trying to work on, is my storytelling, just because I know so many great storytellers.
Yes.
I'm like, man, I hope that rubs off on me in some way, but here we are.
You know what? It goes to we're always striving or maybe comparing ourselves to. I
Mhm.
mean, I think we all have a little bit, we're all guilty to a degree of doing that.
Oh yeah.
And yet we don't even realize the power that we have in our own experiences,
Hmm.
and what we unleash into the world and to the communities and the people that we serve and surround ourselves with. So it was just like a little epiphany that I had
Oh,
of
that's
you that I wanted to share that.
thank you. No, that made my day. I'm gonna be thinking about that. Like, oh, okay, that's
I
good.
think that your speakers need to hear this podcast so that they
Oh.
really understand you more too. Cause I think that they're going to be like, wow.
Thank you so much. And it's funny because going back to the lessons that I've learned and how not to do things. I've worked with some people, and this just happens everywhere, that it's all about them, and it's the them
Mhm.
show, and everything, whether they're a business owner, whether they're a speaker, a client, it is them. And so for me, that's kind of like the cliff that I don't want to fall off of. So I never talk about
Yeah.
myself, which I need. You're so right. I need to share my story. And I hope anybody listening who's over there, like, oh, well, yeah, I probably should share my story too. Share your
Yeah.
story. And that's what I tell other people all day long. But then it comes to me and I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that, because then I would be talking about myself, and that's not okay.
Well, I had this revelation last Friday. I was recording with somebody, and when we were done, I just sat in my chair for a few minutes just thinking, the reason this podcast, I even wanted to do this, was to bring these stories forward.
Mm.
But I think that people who are business owners and entrepreneurs are just remarkable people. And one of the superpowers that they have is it's like they don't even realize
Mm.
what how amazing they are. Which makes them completely just even more like
Yeah.
elevated, amazing. Is
Yes.
that
Yeah, well,
possible?
absolutely. And I worked with some amazing humanitarians. And I feel like that's something that a lot of the best humanitarians, and like best, what does that mean? But some of the most prolific humanitarians have in common.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, I just speak and then I give all the money to my charity. Like I'm out here to spread the mission, spread the cause. And I never want to lose sight of the mission and the cause, because I think that's where you fall off that cliff of me. And
Mhm.
but I do hope, I need to probably start this now, of looking back and being like, good job, past Meta, because I would like to think that, whatever time is, but in the whole flow of time, I like to think that future me is proud of where I am right now and how I've gotten here.
You
And that's
absolutely should storyboard it.
oh, that's good. Okay, well, here you go. You just have a new client in me. Like, can you do this for me?
We can, we'll talk. So helping others succeed is a cornerstone of your mission, obviously. You love it, you thrive in it, you have very passionate about it. But what does it look like for you in practice, both as a business owner and in your personal life?
Ooh, to help others succeed.
Yes.
Oh boy. Well, I'm really good at knowing what other people need. And I'm very good at being proactive about it. So, and I love filling in the gaps. So, for me, from my speakers' perspectives, I love to see, okay, let's assess where your gaps are. Where do you need help? Because I'll conform to that. I'll mold to your process, and I will kind of fill in the gaps so you have, again, a holistic business that is running and flowing and moving and grooving. And so how do we, and some people it's just, hey, I need encouragement. And I'm like, hey, that's one of my spiritual gifts. I got this. And so I'll just like, I can encourage you all day. I can also put Febreze on turds. I'm very good at that. So I think it's a lot of encouragement of just, and I say this, and I'm probably not good at encouraging myself, but I'm good at encouraging other people. I think that's kind of where I start. And that's kind of where I always revert of, okay, what do you need? And how can I encourage you to get there? How can we bridge the gap? And I mean, it's just kind of selfless service is where I come from everything. And if it's not going to be convenient for me, that doesn't matter. I want to put this person and elevate them where they need to be. And so it's a lot of figuring out with my speakers, where do you need to go? What do we need to do? What does your business look like this time next year? That's another thing I learned from Mike Staver. And so he's kind of taught me how to coach people through how we can build your speaking business. So it's all just kind of rooted in that selfless service and encouragement, because that's what we need. We need community. We need our people.
Mm-hmm.
We need cheerleaders, especially speakers, because you're out there on an island just kind of like trying to be a thought leader, trying to keep it all together and do all the things. And
Yeah, it's tough.
it's
Well,
tough.
I think what makes you so good, too, at that is two things: being very observant and being a very good listener.
Man, you know me better than I know myself. That's well, and it's funny. So I mentioned IASB earlier, and that's
Mhm.
the International Association of Speaker Bureaus. For anybody listening, if you're like, what? We had a speaker one year. He was like, I like to call it IASB, and so anyways, I'm a very prolific member of that association. I love it. But kind of our whole, like, I just enjoy being a part of that group because we can, we stay together. And that's kind of the biggest thing is like, you've got to stick together. You've got to have your people around you. And I'm very fortunate to be a part of them, but I don't know where I was going with this. I was going in a direction. But we'll just give them a little plug. If you don't know who they are, go check them out.
Definitely. Anybody who is interested in the speaking industry or wants to be a speaker, I would highly suggest that you go give them a follow.
Yep. My train of thought has left the station and it just ran down that cliff I was talking about.
Well, we were talking about what does it look like for you in practice as a business owner and personal life to help others succeed?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, the listeners. That's what got me. So that group of people, the listening skills, that's what got me on that train. I think all the members of IASB, again, we stick together. We're a very tight-knit community, but I think those members are some of the best, and they work with the greatest speakers in the world, right? They work
Mhm.
with some of the biggest clients in the world. It's comprised of the biggest bureau agents and the most successful managers and all the things. And so honestly, I think we are the best listeners in the world because we have to listen to these people. We have to listen to speakers. We have to be able to identify, oh, I have a client who is dealing with this exact struggle that this speaker is an expert on. I need to put them in this room. And so I think listening is one of the biggest skills as far as being able to support people. You have to listen, you have to observe. And that's what I love to do. I don't need to be on too many podcasts, only for people I love. Because I like to be, like you said, in the background and just kind of listening and observing, and how can we make the best matches and the most successful speaker brands.
It's like listening with intention, because we don't want to be listening to be thinking about the next point
Yeah.
we want to make or the next question we want to ask, or it's listening with intention.
Yeah, and you could tell whatever that intention isn't there, and it's not that much fun to have that conversation with some of those
No.
people. It doesn't get too deep.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what would be, or what would you say would be your biggest challenge in your journey? And then how did you overcome it?
Oh, like up until this point, what was my biggest challenge?
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, that's a great question. I think, well, I know what my current biggest challenge is, and that's myself. That's my head, the voice inside my head that's like, you have to be perfect. You must do.
Oh my gosh, yes, that whole imposter syndrome, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
And you just took it a step further, because I think it might actually be imposter syndrome, because I feel like it's kind of that, like, I don't know, it's that thing that always kind of circles back, and then you're like, okay, go away, and then it goes away for a little bit, and then it circles back. Um, and I think what's really helped me overcome that is groups like IASB. But then I'm also uh, I'm a member of an amazing mastermind group. And if anybody listening is not a member of a mastermind group, in whatever field you are and whatever you're interested in, find one, find your people, because I was invited to be a part of this group. And I will just, I'm not going to say some of the most successful managers in the business right now are in this group. And I get to learn from them. They get to speak life into me. I get to be just totally candid with them. I can tell them when I'm having a good day. I can tell them when I'm having a bad day. And without fail, somebody will call me and be like, how's it going? How can I help you solve this problem? Or, oh, hey, I have a client who your speaker would be really good for, or and so that has helped me so much, where they can say, look, you have a spot in this industry. Because again, I started so young, and I'm still so young, and I acknowledge that, but they help me really break out of that mindset of, hey, you are here for a reason. You're supposed to be here.
I love that. Yeah, that's so important. They're lifting you up too.
Yep. Yeah, we call ourselves sanctuary, because we're like the safe space. We're a safe space where we can kind of mastermind. Like, we'll put together like promotion ideas. We'll copy each other's ideas, and that's the whole point of the mastermind is, hey, take my information. One of them just sent all of her contracts to us. She said, "Oh yeah, if you need a contract clause, here's my contract that I use." And like, that kind of transparency and partnership,
Mhm.
because we're all technically, I guess, competitors if you want to really dig into the industry. But this, I don't know, this partnership and this camaraderie is just, it's so special and so sweet, and it's really helped me break out of limiting beliefs, or those
Yeah,
rules that we put in our head.
I think that's awesome. I also think that there's enough money and work and opportunity for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in this industry. And I think as long as we keep that abundant mentality, like you said, there's
Mhm.
enough for everyone. There's a piece of the pie for everybody. And, and maybe somebody who has a piece that they want to give you their piece. And you never know. It's such a small world.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, especially in the industry that you're in, that the world of business is always changing. So, what do you do to stay ahead of trends and competitive, like, industry information? Because I know that's really important. We all have to do that, but how do you stay ahead of the trends?
I think one is, again, being a member of IASB, because they're really good as a collective. They're very good at, okay, this is what's coming. AI is coming. And we
Mhm.
need to start implementing it for our clients before they implement it, before they do it to us. We need to
Yeah.
start. And so things like that, we're able to kind of have these candid conversations around. And I think, honestly, this was a shower thought I had. It's funny that you asked this question, because I was thinking about this in the shower the other day. I was like, man, I'm kind of always wrong. I'm always wrong about trends. I'm always wrong about, like, where's the industry going? And so now I'm like, okay, do I just need to make a plan and then do the opposite of whatever that is? I don't know. But I kind of want to just go with the flow. And I'm starting
Yeah.
to realize, I think, more so these days than 8 years ago, or pre-COVID. I guess we could just PC it. We live in peace. I guess we live in post-COVID time too. That wouldn't work. Well, I'll figure it out. But anyways, I'm always wrong, and I think it's just kind of going with the flow and finding out what works for you. And so
Mhm.
in management, it's interesting because every speaker has their own flow. Every speaker has their own body of water that they're swimming in. Some are in rivers, some are in very still ponds, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of just, okay, what works for you? Because this person's video strategy might be crushing it. Don't copy that. What works for you? Maybe you need a newsletter. Maybe videos aren't your thing. And so it's kind of just, learning to kind of move and groove and be flexible with that.
Mhm.
Again, I'm always wrong. Darren called me right before COVID just like hit us. And he was like, "What do you think this COVID thing is going to do to the events industry?" And I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. It's not going to be that bad. And we all know what happened. So,
No one could have predicted that.
yeah, yeah.
No one. I mean, I remember sitting when I was working at the speakers bureau, and
Uh-huh.
the phone started ringing, and it was just
Oh,
chaos ensued. No one could have predicted the avalanche that was going to be hitting not only our industry, but I mean every industry.
so true. So true. I
Crazy.
needed this conversation today. I've gotten more out of this. I hope somebody listening has gotten a lot out of this too, because I feel like this is just, I don't know, blowing my mind today. So thank
Oh,
you.
good, good. I like blowing minds.
Good at it.
I'm going to. This is kind of our last question before we wrap up. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting
Mm.
out or considering, what would that advice be?
Don't stop. Put one foot in front of the other. Don't stop, because what is it? 95% of small businesses fail because they just stopped. They didn't keep going. Keep going, and then be consistent and do what you say you're going to do. I think that would be my top 3. Don't
Awesome.
don't give up, stay consistent, and have integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. And as a bonus, just care. I have we were talking about mentors. I have a manager who has, for some reason, he just really likes me and I love him so much. And what he always tells me, he'll refer speakers to me, and I'm always like, thank you so much. Why me? Like, absolutely, I'll look at this person. And Yogi Roth on my roster is a referral from this guy, and he always tells me, you just care. You actually care. And it's just nice that he sees that, because I really
Mhm.
do. I've seen this go real wrong, and I've seen this go real right. And so I want to go real right.
Yeah.
I really care. So
Well, yeah. I mean, I think authenticity is everything.
yeah,
Absolutely everything. And people can tell when you care and when you don't.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's I mean, in this particular industry, you could say it's a relationship industry, but really we've gotten to the point where pretty much every industry
Mm,
is a relationship industry. People want to do business and with other people that they trust and are
yeah.
authentic and build those relationships.
Absolutely. And we just barely talked about AI, but especially in the world of AI right now, as it's just kind of like, it's like a fire. It's just about to
Yeah.
just taking over. And I think especially with kind of that kind of content around and everything, that trust about authenticity is absolutely what's going to level people up, because it's tempting to use AI for all the things, but we
Yeah.
need to use it to make our lives a little bit easier, but don't totally forget who you are. And
Yeah, don't replace it. We always try to tell people when we create content, it's human created. So
that's
our
so good.
content is always going to be human created.
So good.
We can get ideas from AI and we use it for that and
Yeah.
technical things, but when it comes to like really creating for others, I we just have it's very heartfelt for us. It's
I love
important to us to just keep that human component.
Love that. And especially in what you do, that matters so much. And I think that's going to become, and here I am with a trend, but I think that this might be wrong, but I think that's going to become a big value add of, hey, we're not just, computer generating this stuff. This comes from a heart and a soul. And
Yep.
that's so valuable. It's so valuable.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up here. I know how busy you are. I'm so grateful that you took the time to be here. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on your social channels? And I just want to let people know that they can find out more about Metaspeakers at metaspeakers.org. But why don't you shout out your social handles?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the beginning of this, if you look us up on Instagram, we're still just Meta Speakers. So META Speakers, no spaces. We didn't have to get creative because the handle already existed. So that's pretty much where we are on all the platforms. If you want to give us likes on Facebook, that would be really, really cool, because I'm just thinking about deleting it. But my marketing girl is like, no, we have to keep it. But I'm like, but they're so sad. All the posts are so sad. So if there's anybody listening and they feel like just liking a bunch of things, go to Meta Speakers on Facebook. And then we're on LinkedIn as well. So
Awesome.
yeah. And we're a .org as well. So if you're emailing me, it's just META@metaspeakers.org, because I felt like a charity case at the time. So going to go with the .org.
Love that. Well, thank you again for being here. And I just really appreciate you.